Hi there. Well, believe it or not, I actually have a backlog of written journals, and so the webcam was down for a bit, and I'm starting to catch up with them now. Before I start this one, though, I have a question. I'm feeding the hummingbirds, and I've noticed this before, but it's never been so obvious to me as this year. I have 4 feeders, 2 front and 2 back, and in front of the windows, of course. The birds will be there and be there consistently and become a part of the background of nature as you look out. Only for the last week they haven't been feeding. And if anyone knows for sure what that's about, I've seen 2 of them in the last 2 days. So hopefully they're coming back now, but I'm just guessing maybe they're nesting and sitting on eggs, or I don't know what they're doing. So if anyone knows, do let me know. My elderly cousin KP is also curious, and he keeps asking me, and I don't know. Okay, this is from, and these things seem to be coming when they come, 2 a day. So I'll try to upload them this time in the order in which they were written. There's a certain sort of a sense in that. Okay, so this is from 5:15, the first one of that day, which was, the Mayan day was 6 Serpent. No, Kismet. I often call on folks to disidentify with the body, with the mind and its thoughts, not to leave them, nor destroy them, nor even disown them, but to come into right relationship with them, perhaps. To first define self. If we look back a few centuries, we can see where, in the name of being good or bad, people were tortured and burned alive, and not just by the Christians. So, one could see where, conceivably, something like this could be a potential outcome if we disidentify with the body and think it not so important. One could come to think so little of it that to harm or torture it in this way was nothing bad. After all, if it isn't you, then what does it matter? If you come back life after life, what's the big deal? You see thoughts like that? Well, I ask you to look at the mind's work illustrated there. This is mind trying, so it says, to come to understand something. Be suspicious of mind, friends. Hesitate to believe. The best way to go is not found in the choices mind presents. To go this way or that, to decide on this or choose that. Better choices arise from entering heart, from leaving mind with its dualistic choices entirely aside. To go within. What does that look like? Feel like? How does one do it? Well, do you recognize mind in those questions? Can you let them go? Just for a moment. How hard would that be, just to set the questions aside and just be for a few moments? Would you believe that most of us haven't done this at all? Not in this lifetime or many, many others. Well, we just think we have, and there's the rub. As long as you think something, believe something, this becomes the rule for your life. Beliefs create. Believe this or not, as you will, that's your choice. But if you don't at least open yourself to the possibility, then you won't see it at work. Now, what was just said is very deep. That if we're not open to the possibility something is true, then we won't see it at work. Let mind and its chattering go. Enter heart. Let's go deeper within to ponder this. Are you game? Turn off the radio, the TV, whatever else you've got going on. Maybe just go outside and sit with your back to a tree. Claim some peace. Do it mentally if it's not available physically. First, let's spend a moment on just who we are. This is the best place to start. It helps us center on a much deeper level than is possible, while we retain full belief in the matrix, in the dream. So, take just a moment to recall, hey, I am Source. You are. Just for fun, you can also envision the straight line running through the body, both down into the earth and below and up into the skies, going infinitely both ways. Just a little something to help take the focus off of being the body, which we are not. We were looking at beliefs, both at what they are, how they rule, and at a particular one, the belief that we are not the body. We looked at a possible consequence of that belief, at how it would potentially, in the hands of mind, so to speak, empower the Inquisition's way of treating people and bodies. Now, when I give examples, it's not because I care or have a vested interest in some particular example. You'll find, if you look, that it's always to illustrate something deeper. So don't get lost in the particulars, in other words. That would be characteristic of mind, and it would take you off track. Do you see? So, I'm desiring to illustrate some ways that mind approaches things, contrasting them with working from heart. Well, that's my desire, anyway. There are ancient truths that have been both known and passed down through the ages to us. Really deep things. They haven't been lost. Rather, we greet them in such a way that we don't really perceive them, not on the level from which they emanate, the level from which they were delivered. And instead, we've been socialized to elevate the speaker of these truths rather than finding the same thing within self. You are truth. Come on, if you are Source, then you are truth as well. Only this word is misunderstood. It's looked at, you may have guessed it, from mind. We are trained, my friends, to view all things mentally, are we not? How else do you get through your classes at school? It's the way we've been taught to view and define success as the mind's perspective on whatever it is. So naturally, that would be a rather challenging habit to set aside. It goes pretty deep, and I recognize that. Hey, it's the same for me, you know. I'm no different. I've got a mind that was programmed just like most everyone else. So please don't elevate me in any way. When you see something beautiful or wonderful here or anywhere, recognize that as a mirror of yourself. And I assure you that had you not manifested that, then you wouldn't be able to see it in me or in anyone else. Things work like that. One thing that's most helpful then is to be very cautious around our words. And stay in heart with me. We trust our definitions too much, not stopping to consider that someone else doesn't necessarily define it just like we do. We can start there. Yet, that is just mastering mind and mind's ways. Definitions are always of mind. I know it's odd for me to be talking about a good way to work within mind, so I'll take just a moment more to be clear. Let us not seek to set mind aside completely in our quest for waking up. What's appropriate when we sit to meditate is not always appropriate behavior in the rest of our life. So yes, it's good to become the master of 3D mind, to use it wisely and well. Hey, why not? It's a gift of Source along with these bodies. So let's master it and cease to have it mastering us. I like to start by reminding the self of what I call the 5% fact, that the conscious mind is but 5% of the whole. It's a really good place to start, you may find, for it throws mind off balance right from the start. We may as well know and admit that mind is an arrogant creature, one that loves to be right. Well, knowing this helps us master it too. Okay, so we start with what amounts to the mind pretzel, the 5% fact. And this also helps us remember that we are not that. We are neither body nor mind, but unless we play some tricks on and with mind, and ultimately unless we reprogram it, then it will have us believing that we are that we are the body mind. What works for you to help you break the spell of the physical self-image or self-definition? What works? Perhaps it is simple acknowledgement of having 12 major chakras rather than just 7. You have to expand out to encompass them, right? Perhaps it's a simple expanding out to encompass the earth and all that's in, on, around, and through it. Turn to heart to help discover what works best for you. Then, when you go into anything deep, you can short circuit the mind taking over right away from the start, for it will, if given a chance. Mind runs things for us until we choose otherwise. Working with things like we're discussing here is evidence of your choice for something else. I also see it as a part of taking your power back, which must start within. Now that you're oriented more in consciousness, more in self than in the body mind, let's look at our proposition again. How do we look at something like not identifying with the body in such a way that mind doesn't run the show? We can, of course, recognize by the options mind presents the characteristics of a mental response. As we continue on our march into heart from head, we'll get better and better at that. Any answer you get to something you're pondering, any answer at all that doesn't completely embody integrity, look again, suspiciously. That answer is likely born of mind, not heart. Doesn't come from anything deep. Yet by identifying with awareness instead of body or mind, we are much more likely to spot such things. Mind will recognize mind answers and thoroughly approve them, but of course. You see, it's quite possible to think with something besides the left brain mind. And I suppose that's shocking to some, but not likely to so many who spend time with my work. You know where I'm coming from and more of what I mean. We can ponder and go very deep with things by remaining centered deeply within. We can do this without the assistance of the 3D brain. Some will object, sure. Let them, that's their thing. That's evidence they haven't surrendered their ideas and opinions, their identifying with mind, sufficiently to be hearing what is said here. And it's also possible they're not familiar with the fact that neurotransmitters are made not only in the brain. They're also found in the heart and in the gut and I don't know where else. Yet it wastes our time and lowers our energy to spend much time answering them. So let's move on. We are going deep. Deeper than mind, anyway. We're delving within. Discernment, discretion, and intuition find their base on a deeper level than mind. Mind has imitations of these, but you'll find the real deal deeper within. The elements of these things that mind can manifest are much more linear than what we find down deep. When you find yourself centered quietly within, bring up whatever question you want to ask. Well, wait. I'd first be sure that it's not a totally mind-based question, else it may just bring you back into mind. So, before you start, give some consideration to the worth, the value, the depth of the question. And it's also a really good idea to have no expectations. Expectations are also mind things, my friends. Have you worked that one out for yourself yet? If not, then give it a wee bit of pondering time. Because once you see this one for yourself, you'll be quick to recognize that anything at all that deals with time, as expectations take one off into the future, is also of mind. Mind and time are very much one. Still, unless you come to this for yourself, it won't be there for you when you need it. At any rate, expectations will take you back into mind, so set them aside. Just be open instead to whatever arises, even if it's nothing. Self and now focus work best. It doesn't pay to bring mind questions to heart. First, as I've said, the question itself will tend to take you up out of the heart back into mind. But even if you maintain heart focus, a mind question doesn't fare well inside. When looked at from heart focus, it looks shallow and unimportant. It sort of falls apart. So that can be a big hint. So it's true that we can usefully bring just any question to heart. Some won't make the grade. They'll disintegrate long before they get down inside. And we can learn to recognize and enjoy that for what it is. It's us in transition. It's us making the shift from head into heart. There's joy there. It's a good thing, even though mind will think it anything but. Mind is stubborn and hard-headed, or it tends to be. It wants to be in charge of both framing the question and evaluating the replies. And as long as we allow it, so long will we continue to be dominated by mind. It is ultimately quite up to us, but when it calls us into some uncomfortable, awkward seeming spaces and feelings, the tendency is to want to look away, to go look at something else. Be still with that. Let's recognize mind in that too. This is where your few moments at the start, where you centered in who you truly are, stepping out of self-identifying as body-mind, pay off handsomely. We are now much more ready and able to see that it is mind itself who is made uncomfortable by our pondering, our line of thought. Mind doesn't want us to go there. Well, so what? So, we take our power back more and more as we're ready. We do this by being willing to feel uncomfortable at times and to just stay with it. This is more a characteristic of those who have already done some work pulling weeds from their garden of belief. Hey, getting down into the subconscious like that and having an effect, that's great and not so easily done. It takes intent, focused intent, which a lot of us have and in spades. So, as this writing flows through, I am also learning, as usual. I see how important one's self-image is to simple things like decision-making. Who'd have thunk it, huh? But clearly it is, for unless we put the time in or focus the intent on transcending the self-concept of being just the body-mind, it will almost always be the mind making our decisions. We are transcendent beings, my friends. We are not native to 3D. Not at all. Yet we've been schooled and socialized to act as if that's all we are. We've been trained to trust deeply in mind, to rely on that when making our choices. Yet that's backwards, really. Can you see it? How will we ever take our power back if we leave it to mind? If you've taken even one step down this road, you know that mind does not want to give over the reins, to give up control. So, unless you have a clear intent and set out to run your own show, then you're not likely going any place you haven't already been. Round and round in circles. When it comes to taking our power back, the first and mandatory spot to start is our very own mind. Nothing and no one outside. So just be noticing then. Be on the watch, self-observing what goes on within. Once you know that your life is basically run by your beliefs, well, that makes them important enough to have a really close look. Yet it's not something mind can do. Why not? Come on, you know, because they're not accessible to the conscious mind, being subconscious as they are, for the most part. So, just like that, conscious mind is cut off, is prevented from going where it would choose. And that's the thing, to no longer let it be the one choosing. Do you see? Unless we take back the reins from mind, we will forever be under its domination. And as we know, mind is unkind. It's a bully. In the end, that turns out to be to our advantage, though. And how is that? It's by becoming so fed up with how mind is behaving, how it treats us and others, that we finally decide that there's just got to be a better way. It acts as a catalyst, in other words, to our waking up, strange though that sounds. Mind sees everything in a linear fashion, most often judging as bad or good what it sees. Yet, once we begin living from heart, everything changes. We're just not like that anymore. Now, no matter what comes before us as circumstances or persons or whatever, we can see deeper into that. We can see both sides of that. What mind judges to be negative, we see as having a positive effect too. Do you see? Staying with mind also keeps us bound to 3D, which I'm sure most of us are eager to transcend. Now, it's not that we need to leave 3D for this, for we can retain our place here, but just expand out and begin to access, on a more conscious level, those other dimensions we interact with all the time. We're multidimensional, folks, so no matter whether we know it or not, that's the case. We're present on these other dimensions. There are some who actually hate me for my way of viewing mind. Of course, that's their mind that hates it. Some have gotten so vicious, I had to block them from my channel, just a few. Something I hate to do, open as I am to what others bring to the table. Here's what I'm aware of. What hates me isn't them. It's their frightened mind. This is no small shift. If you take this walk, you will truly feel at some point as if you've been stripped of everything you ever knew, trusted, and believed. All the rules change on you. It can be most disconcerting. Some, many, take that in their stride, this entry into emptiness, this brushing up against the void. If you're ready for this walk, though, it's surely open to you. And I ask that we cut those that aren't ready a whole heck of a lot of slack. Surely we can understand. I don't mean to frighten anyone. I do want to point out, though, that what is being frightened is the mind. That one who, though she had things all worked out so very well, so very nicely, she thought she did. That is the one whose house of cards will necessarily come tumbling down. And she won't like it. So, this is a time to withdraw belief in many things. And the first of which is who you think you are, your identity. Have a really deep look, and then look again. The next is your mind and all that it says. The time for belief in things is fast ending. Soon it won't be a problem. We'll just know. And be in heart to hear that. Feel it. You'll know that it's true. But that time is not yet fully upon us, so we stumble around a bit, seeking to get our feet under us. Well, I say, let go. Let the self do a bit of floating. See if you can even come to enjoy that. My bet is that you can. After all, it's what your now brings, so why not just decide to enjoy? They spell it wrong. It's enjoy, not enjoy. For a time, we'll still retain belief in some things. It's practical. It helps us navigate in 3D. Yet, I have found that it's possible to operate with fewer and fewer beliefs and still do fine. Sure, some wouldn't call my life fine, but then they're not living it. I am, and I call it better than fine. I call it great. May you be brought to the same conclusion about your life, regardless of what people and circumstances bring your way. How you handle things is very much up to you, within your power. Your attitude is always your own, your choice. And so are your beliefs. So, do take charge, my friends. Make your life over into something you really enjoy. You can do this bit by bit, the step that's before you. Life is much better, too, when lived from heart, from deeper within. It's the life lived from mind that's a hassle, not the life itself. So, look to mind. Let us be both wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Namaste.